Chapter 18. The current song at that time was Roy Hamilton singing, "Everybody's Got a Home But Me." I kept singing that as I swung along. On the other side of Riverside, I got on the highway and got a ride right away from a young couple to an airfield 5 miles out of town. And from there, a ride from a quiet man almost to Beaumont, California, but 5 miles short of it on a double-lane speed highway with nobody likely to stop, so I hiked on in beautiful sparkling air. At Beaumont, I ate hot dogs, hamburgers, and a bag of fries and added a big strawberry shake, all among giggling high school children. Then, the other side of town, I got a ride from a Mexican called Jamie, who said he was the son of the governor of the state of Baja California, Mexico, which I didn't believe, and it was a wino, and had me buy him wine, which he only threw up out the window as he drove. A droopy, sad, helpless young man, very sad eyes, very nice, a bit nutty. He was driving clear to Mexicali, a little off my route, but good enough and far enough out toward Arizona to suit me. At Calexico, it was Christmas shopping time on Main Street with incredible, perfect, astonished Mexican beauties who kept getting so much better that when the first ones had repassed, they'd already become capped and thin in my mind. I was standing there looking every which way, eating an ice cream cone, waiting for Jamie, who said he had an errand and would pick me up again and take me personally into Mexicali, Mexico, to meet his friends. My plan was to have a nice cheap supper in Mexico and then roll on that night. Jamie didn't show up, of course. I crossed the border by myself and turned sharp right at the gate to avoid the hawker street and went immediately to relieve myself of water and construction dirt, but a crazy Mexican watchman with an official uniform thought it was a big infringement and said something, and when I said I didn't know, no sé, he said, "No sabes police?" The nerve of him to call the cops because I peed on his dirt ground, but I did notice afterward and felt sad that I had watered the spot where he sat to light a small fire nights because there were wood coals piled, so I moved up the muddy street feeling meek and truly sorry, with a big pack on my back, as he stared after me with his doleful stare. I came to a hill and saw great mud-flat river bottoms with stinks and tarns and awful paths with women and burros ambling in the dusk. An old Chinese Mexican beggar caught my eye and we stopped to chat. When I told him I might go dormiendo sleep in those flats, I was really thinking of a little beyond the flats and the foothills. He looked horrified, and being a deaf mute, he demonstrated that I would be robbed of my pack and killed if I tried it, which I suddenly realized was true. I wasn't in America anymore. Either side of the border, either way you sliced the bologna, a homeless man was in hot water. Where would I find a quiet grove to meditate in, to live in forever? After the old man tried to tell me his life story by signs, I walked away waving and smiling, and crossed the flats and narrow board bridge over the yellow water and over to the poor adobe district of Mexicali, where the Mexico gaiety as ever charmed me. And I ate a delicious tin bowl of garbanzo soup with pieces of cabeza, head, and cebolla, onion, raw. Having cashed the quarter at the border gate for 3 paper pesos and a big pile of huge pennies. While eating at the little mud street counter, I dug the street, the people, the poor bitch dogs, the cantinas, the whores, the music, men goofing in the narrow road wrestling, and across the street an unforgettable beauty parlor, Salon de Belleza, with a bare mirror on a bare wall and bare chairs, and one little 17-year-old beauty with her hair in pins dreaming at the mirror. But an old plaster bust with periwig beside her, and a big man with a mustache and a Scandinavian ski sweater, picking his teeth behind a little boy at the next mirror chair, eating a banana, and out on the sidewalk, some little children gathered like before a movie house, and I thought, oh, Mexicali on some Saturday afternoon. Thank you, O Lord, for returning me my zest for life, for thy ever-recurring forms in thy womb of exuberant fertility. All my tears weren't in vain. It'll all work out finally. Then, strolling, I bought a hot donut stick, then 2 oranges from a girl, and recrossed the bridge in dusk evening and headed for the border gate happy. But here I was, stopped by 3 unpleasant American guards, and my whole rucksack was searched sullenly. What'd you buy in Mexico? Nothing. They didn't believe me. They fished around. After fingering my wraps of leftover french fries from Beaumont and raisins and peanuts and carrots and cans of pork and beans, I made sure to have for the road and half loaves of whole wheat bread. They got disgusted and let me go. It was funny, really. They were expecting a rucksack full of opium from Sinaloa, no doubt, or weed from Mazatlan, or heroin from Panama. Maybe they thought I'd walked all the way from Panama. They couldn't figure me out. I went to the Greyhound bus station and bought a short ticket to El Centro and the main highway. I figured I'd catch the Arizona Midnight Ghost and be in Yuma that same night and sleep in the Colorado River bottom, which I'd noticed long ago, but it wound up in El Centro. I went to the yards and angled around and finally talked to a conductor passing the sign to a switch engine. "Where's the zipper?" "It don't come through El Centro." I was surprised at my stupidity. Only freight you can catch goes through Mexico, then Yuma, but they'll find you and kick you out, and you'll wind up in a Mexican calaboose, boy. I've had enough of Mexico, thanks. So I went to the big intersection in town, with the cars turning for the eastward run to Yuma, and started thumbing. I had no luck for an hour. Suddenly a big truck pulled up to the side. The driver got out and fiddled with his suitcase. "You going east?" I asked. "Soon as I spend a little time in Mexicali. You know anything about Mexico?" "Lived there for years." He looked me over. He was a good old Joe, fat, happy, Middle Western. He liked me. "How about showing me around Mexicali tonight? Then I'll drive you to Tucson." "Right, great." We got in the truck and went right back to Mexicali on the road I'd just covered in the bus, but it was worth it to get clear to Tucson. We parked the car in Calexico, which was quiet now, at 11, and went over into Mexicali, and I took him away from the tourist trap honky-tonks and led him to the good old saloons of real Mexico, where there were girls at a peso, a dance, and a raw tequila, and lots of fun. It was a big night. He danced and enjoyed himself. He had his picture taken with a señorita and drank about 20 shots of tequila. Somewhere during the night, we hooked up with a colored guy who was some kind of queer, but was awfully funny, and led us to a whorehouse. And then, as we were coming out of a Mexican cop relieved him of his snap knife. "That's my third knife this month. Those bastards stole from me," he said. In the morning, Beaudry, the driver, and I got back to the truck, bleary eyes and hungover, and he wasted no time and drove straight to Yuma, not going back to El Centro, but on the excellent no-traffic Highway 98, straight 100 miles after hitting 80 at Gray Wells. Soon we were in fact coming into Tucson. We'd eaten a slight lunch outside Yuma, and now he said he was hungry for a good steak. Only thing is, these truck stops ain't got big enough steaks to suit me. "Well, you just park your truck up one of these Tucson supermarkets on the highway, and I'll buy a 2-inch steak T-bone, and we'll stop in the desert, and I'll light a fire and broil you the greatest steak of your life." He didn't really believe it, but I did. Outside of the lights of Tucson, in a flaming red dusk over the desert, he stopped, and I lit a fire with mesquite branches, adding bigger branches and logs later. As it got dark, and when the coals were hot, I tried to hold the steak over them with a pit about the spit burned, so I just fried the huge steaks in their own fat in my lovely new pot pan cover, and handed him my jackknife, and he went to it and said, "Wow, that is the best steak I ever ate." I'd also bought milk, and we had just steak and milk, a great protein feast, squatting there in the sand as highway cars zipped by our little red fire. "Where'd you learn to do all these funny things?" he laughed. And, I say funny, but there's something so darn sensible about them. Here I am killing myself, driving this rig back and forth from Ohio to LA, and I make more money than you ever had in your whole life as a hobo. But you're the one who enjoys life, and not only that, but you do it without working or a whole lot of money. Now who's smart, you or me? And he had a nice home in Ohio with wife, daughter, Christmas tree, 2 cars, garage, lawnmower, but he couldn't enjoy any of it because he really wasn't free. It was sadly true. It didn't mean I was a better man than he was. However, he was a great man, and I liked him, and he liked me and said, "Well, I'll tell you, Supposing I drive you all the way to Ohio. Wow, great. That'll take me just about home. I'm going south of there to North Carolina. I was hesitating at first on account of the Markel insurance, man. See, if they catch you riding with me, I'll lose my job. Oh, hell, and ain't that some typical? It sure is, but I'll tell you something. After this steak you made for me, even though I paid for it, but you cooked it and here you are washing your dishes in the sand, I'll just have to tell them to stick the job up their ass because now you're my friend and I got a ride to give to my friend. And I got a right to give my friend a ride. Sorry, I'm messing up. Okay, I said, and I'll pray we don't get stopped by no Markel insurance men. Good chance of that because it's Saturday now, and we'll be in Springfield, Ohio at about dawn Tuesday if I push this rig, and it's their weekend off more or less. And did he ever push that rig? From that desert in Arizona, he roared on up to New Mexico, took the cut through Las Cruces, up to Alamogordo, where the atom bomb was first blasted, and where I had a strange vision as we drove along, seeing in the clouds above the Alamogordo mountains the words as if imprinted in the sky. This is the impossibility of the existence of anything. Which was a strange place for that strange true vision. And then he batted on through the beautiful Atascadero Indian countries in the uphills of New Mexico, beautiful green valleys and pines in New England like rolling meadows, and then down to Oklahoma. At outside Bowie, Arizona, we'd had a short nap at dawn. He in the truck, me in my bag in the cold red clay, with just stars blazing silence overhead and a distant coyote. In no time at all, he was going up through Arkansas and eating it up in one afternoon, and then Missouri and St. Louis, and finally on Monday night bashing across Illinois and Indiana and into old snowy Ohio with all the cute Christmas lights making my heart joy in the windows of old farms. Wow, I thought, all the way from the warm arms of the senoritas of Mexicali to the Christmas snows of Ohio in one fast ride. He had a radio on his dashboard and played it booming all the way too. We didn't talk much. He just yelled once in a while, telling an anecdote, and had such a loud voice that he actually pierced my eardrum, the left one, and made it hurt, making me jump 2 feet in my seat. He was great. We had a lot of good meals too. En route, in various favorite truck stops of his, one in Oklahoma where he had roast pork and yams worthy of my mother's own kitchen. We ate and ate. He was always hungry. In fact, so was I. It was winter cold now, and Christmas was on the fields and the food was good. In Independence, Missouri, we made our only stop to sleep in a room in a hotel at almost $5 a piece, which was robbery, but we needed the sleep, and I couldn't wait in the below zero truck. When I woke up in the morning on Monday, I looked out and saw all the eager young men in business suits going to work in insurance offices, hoping to be big Harry Truman someday. By Tuesday dawn, he let me off in downtown Springfield, Ohio, in a deep cold wave, and we said goodbye, just a little sadly. I went to a lunch cart, drank tea, figured my budget, went to a hotel, and had one good exhausted sleep. Then I bought a bus ticket to Rocky Mount, as it was impossible to hitchhike from Ohio to North Carolina in all that winter mountain country through the Blue Ridge and all. But I got impatient and decided to hitchhike anyway, and asked the bus to stop on the outskirts and walk back to the bus station to cash my ticket. They wouldn't give me the money. The upshot of my insane impatience was that I had to wait 8 more hours for the next slow bus to Charleston, West Virginia. I started hitchhiking out of Springfield, figuring to catch the bus in a town farther down, just for fun, and froze my feet and hands standing in dismal country roads in freezing dusk. One good ride took me a little town, and there I just waited around the tiny telegraph office, which served as a station, till my bus arrived. Then it was a crowded bus going slowly over the mountains all night long, and in the dawn of laborious climb over the Blue Ridge with beautiful timbered country in the snow. Then after a whole day of stopping and starting down out of the mountains into Mount Airy, and finally after ages rally where I transferred to my local bus and instructed the driver to let me off at a country road that wound 3 miles through the piney woods to my mother's house in Big Easenburg Woods, which is a country crossroad outside Rocky Mount. He let me off at about 8 p.m., and I walked the 3 miles in silent, freezing Carolina road of moon, watching a jet plane overhead, her stream drifting across the face of the moon and bisecting the snow circle. It was beautiful to be back east in the snow at Christmas time. The little lights in occasional farm windows, the quiet woods, the piney barrens so naked and drear, the railroad track that ran off into the gray-blue woods toward my dream. At 9 o'clock, I was stomping with full pack across my mother's yard, and there she was at the white-tiled sink in the kitchen, washing her dishes, with a rueful expression waiting for me. I was late, worried I'd never even make it, and probably thinking, poor Raymond, why does he always have to hitchhike and worry me to death? Why isn't he like the other men? And I thought of Japhy as I stood there in the cold yard looking at her. Why is he so mad about white-tiled sinks and kitchen machinery, he calls it? People have good hearts, whether or not they live like Dharma bums. Compassion is the heart of Buddhism. Behind the house was a great pine forest where I would spend all that winter and spring meditating under the trees and finding out by myself the truth of all things. I was very happy. I walked around the house and looked at the Christmas tree in the window. 100 yards down the road to the 2 country stores made a bright, warm scene in the otherwise bleak wooded void. I went to the dog house and found old Bob trembling and snorting in the cold. He whimpered, glad to see me. I unleashed him, and he yipped and leaped around and came into the house with me. Where I embraced my mother in the warm kitchen, and my sister and brother-in-law came out of the parlor and greeted me, and little nephew Lou too, and I was home again.